Okay, so like we use them every day, right?
We do, yeah.
Stairways,
Yeah.
ladders.
Yep.
But like I bet most folks don't think too hard about them in terms of,
Safety.
Yeah, safety. We're going to change that today.
We are.
So this is going to be a deep dive on OSHA Regulation 1926.1051.
Specifically stairways and ladders.
Right. And for this deep dive, we are working with some really excellent training material.
Yes.
From Safety One Source.
Safety One Source, yeah.
And this stuff is really geared toward safety professionals and people who are really trying to, improve safety in their workplaces.
Yeah. So, I mean, we go upstairs.
Right.
We climb ladders. You would think it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But OSHA has some very specific requirements that I think are going to surprise some people.
Definitely.
For example, did you know that there's a specific rule about a 19-inch elevation change? Yes. So OSHA says anytime you have a change in elevation of 19 inches or more, you've got to have a stairway or a ladder.
Wow.
So it's mandatory. Now, there are a few exceptions to that. If you've got like a ramp, a runway, embankment, or a personnel hoist, then you wouldn't necessarily need the stairway or ladder.
Okay, so those are the only
exceptions.
So 19 inches.
Yep. Awfully specific.
Awfully specific.
Right.
I mean, 19 inches, that's like barely knee high.
It is.
Why is that the number, the magic number?
Well, I think sometimes people think, well, that's such a short distance.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Right.
But, OSHA is all about preventing injuries.
Right.
And really, even a fall from just 19 inches can result in a lost time injury.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about a work environment.
Right.
Like, let's say a construction site. The ground's uneven, you've got tools laying around. You trip, you fall, you could twist an ankle, sprain a knee, and those things can definitely lead to lost work time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely adds up.
It does.
I'm not hopping off the loading dock anymore, I can tell you that.
I wouldn't advise it.
All right.
But moving on.
Yeah. What about spiral staircases? I was reading through the OSHA regulations.
Okay.
And apparently those can't be permanent fixtures in buildings that are under construction.
That's right. That's a rule that a lot of people kind of raise their eyebrows at.
Yeah.
Like why is that?
Yeah.
And it really comes down to a couple of things. One is stability.
Okay.
Spiral staircases, especially temporary ones that are often used in construction, might not be quite as robust, as a traditional staircase. And then the other thing is evacuation.
Okay. If
there's an emergency and you need to get everybody out of the building quickly, a spiral staircase can be a real bottleneck. Right.
It's hard to get a lot of people down those quickly.
Yeah, it's almost like a fire drill on a corkscrew or something.
It is.
Yeah.
So it makes sense from a safety standpoint.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so we've talked about, elevation changes, spiral staircases. What happens if you have like a ton of people that need to get up to those elevations?
Well, OSHA also has rules about that, right? Yeah. They have regulations about the traffic flow on ladders.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got 25 or more employees that need to access a work area via ladder.
Wow.
Or if you have a situation where you've got two-way traffic on a ladder.
Okay.
OSHA says you got to have either multiple ladders or a double cleated ladder.
Okay.
And that's again, it's about preventing congestion, making sure that things flow smoothly.
Yeah.
Especially in an emergency situation.
Yeah. I could see that. Like, I would imagine a ladder traffic jam during an evacuation.
Right.
Not something you want to deal with.
No, definitely not.
Speaking of emergencies, one thing that kind of stood out to me when I was, looking through this stuff was OSHA's emphasis on clear access points.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really big on that.
Yeah.
OSHA is very clear that you have to have at least one access point.
Okay.
Between levels.
Okay.
That is clear and unobstructed at all times.
Wow.
So if for some reason work is happening and that passage is blocked, you've got to have a second access point available that people can use.
Okay.
And this is, Obviously, this is important for just normal, everyday movement around the work site.
Right.
But it's especially critical in an emergency situation.
If there's an evacuation, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like, even if you're just moving materials around and you temporarily block a stairway, you have to make sure that there's another way for people to get through. Absolutely. You can't afford to have bottlenecks when it comes to an emergency.
Yeah.
Every second counts.
Okay. So we've talked about elevation changes, spiral staircases, traffic flow, clear access points.
Right.
Kind of like, what's the takeaway here? What's the big message OSHA's trying to get across?
I think the overall message here is that OSHA is really pushing for proactive safety.
Okay.
They're not just saying, well, make sure you have a ladder if it's over 19 inches.
Right.
They're saying employers have to provide and install all of the necessary stairway and ladder fall protection systems.
Yeah.
And a key part of this is that they have to comply with all of the requirements of subpart X, and they have to do this before employees even use the stairways, the ladders, the fall protection.
So it's not enough to just have the equipment. It has to be like installed correctly and meet all the regulations. It's really about like creating a culture of safety from the beginning.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And this is where resources like Safety One Source can be really valuable because they can provide training, they can provide tools to help safety professionals really understand and implement all of these regulations.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a really interesting look at OSHA's approach to stairway and ladder safety. It's kind of easy to overlook these everyday things.
It is.
But clearly, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it than most people realize.
Yeah.
It might seem like OSHA has a lot of rules and regulations.
Right.
But all of these rules have a purpose.
Right.
It all comes back to protecting workers.
Yeah.
And I think if you understand the why behind the rules, it helps you to create a safer environment.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the next time you're on a job site, think about those 19 inches. Think about traffic flow on those ladders.
Yep.
And think about those clear access points.
It matters.
Yeah, it could make all the difference.
It really could.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
You got it.
Be sure to check out Safety One Source.
Yeah, great resource.
If you want to learn more about this and other safety topics.
Definitely.
And until next time, stay safe out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take care.